Welcome to Trinity. Our youth are leading in both services today, and we're glad you're here for worship. If you're a visitor this morning, we want to say a special welcome to you, and you can fill out the welcome card that's in the pew rack in front of you. And later in the service, you can put that in the offering plate. There are lots of announcements in your bulletin, so here's a few of them. There's a wedding shower for Sarah Bauhay and David Ostula at 1:30 in the fellowship hall today. There's also a deacons meeting at 5, and it's also the last night for TU classes, which are at 6. The children's choirs will meet, and the youth are going to Top Golf. You meet in the youth room at 6, and pickup is at Top Golf at 8. Wednesday night supper is at 4:45, and there will be regular activities. And Wednesday is also a church conference night, which starts at 6. Saturday, the Perry County Mission Team will be leaving to work with First Baptist Church in Uniontown and install playground equipment and other things. And Saturday, you also spring forward, so make sure you set your clocks. Next Sunday, there will only be Sunday school and a 10:30 worship service. And in the middle of your bulletin, there's also an announcement about the volleyball team. If you have any questions or want to sign up for that, you can see Pastor Mike. And now Mike Killing has an announcement from the Finance Committee.
Good morning. I am representing the Finance Committee here this morning. I'm going to give you a brief report about our church finances. Let me just set the tone before I get into my remarks. The report is really, really good. So, having said that, the folks that serve on the committee with me are Lynn Hogan and Chris Crumley. And also we have what we call non-voting members, and that's our treasurer, John Howell, and then Pastor Mike and Glenn serve on the committee as well. You probably have heard John say this more times, but there's some patterns of giving in our church, and one of them is a pattern that is very consistent. Is December is traditionally a very good month of giving for us. This December 2017 was no different, with one exception. It was record-setting. The numbers I think will blow you away. And the report is on the website. I learned this morning already, so you may have seen some of these. But here are some of the remarks that John said when he sent us the summary of the January report. The general fund giving was the highest monthly general fund giving since he's been treasurer. More than likely, he says, as far back as he's seen the records, it exceeds anything he's ever seen in our history. It was a 5-Sunday month, which is a good thing, but also the 3 of the 5 Sundays were record-setting Sundays for 2017. Beyond the general fund, in December we take up a staff offering for a holiday Christmas offering. The staff offering for 2017 was a record high staff offering, record in our church, highest in our church. We had very good missions giving, which I'll get into a little more details now. And also, let me just say, we started this 30 for 30 campaign to pay off our mortgage. And December was also a record giving for the 30 for 30 campaign. So those are some remarks, but here are the numbers. And the numbers will really tell the story. Now, I'm going to say 2 things. I'm doing some generous rounding on these numbers so you can kind of help remember them. But also, let me just say, if you have any questions about anything I say today, you can contact committee members, but more importantly, the number that's on the website, but also this Wednesday is our regular scheduled church conference where John will present all these reports to you. But let me just start by beginning with the general fund giving. In December, our church gave to the general fund essentially a little shy of $170,000. Now, a typical budget giving for 2017 was $75,000. I looked at John's graph this morning. I was preparing for this. He makes his graph of monthly giving. It has about 5 years on there. December, he almost had to change his vertical scale. It got so high. Not a bad problem to have. So after expenses, we ended up the year. It was $85,000 positive for the month. For year to date for 2017, in November of 2017, we finished November $11,000 in the hole. We finished the year $73,000 good. That much difference just in the giving. Now again, there'll be more details coming up this week at the church conference. The other giving, I talked about the staff offering. We gave $6,000 for the staff offering, highest in our history. Our missions giving was outstanding. You know, in Christmas time, during the Christmas season, we have a focus on the CBF offering for CBF missionaries. Our church gave $4,500. We also had the Lottie Moon Southern Baptist Convention offering for foreign missionaries. Our church gave $2,000 to that. Besides that, we had people that provided designated offering, mostly to cover travel expenses for our Trinity missionaries. That was $7,500 that was given. And since our income was so high, we have what we call income-based mission giving. We give 6% of our monthly income to the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, Southern Baptist Convention, and to the Baptist Association. Well, based on December giving in January, we sent those gifts. We sent $9,800 to those folks, and a typical gift for those would be $4,500. And then we also gave roughly $9,600 for the 30 for 30 campaign. We've given now, since we started this in October, $18,000 year to date. Our loan balance now is $537 compared to the end of last year, end of 2016, it was $629,000. Now let's talk about 2018. First off, we got the report in for January. We know what January is. January, we had a loss. It was what we like to call a 3 payroll month, which means high expenses. Giving was off a little bit, but even with that, we still are sitting right with our checking account of having 3 months of expenses in our checking account ready. So we're still in just outstanding shape. Some things we've done, we decided to take $15,000 and transfer it from the general fund to what we call escrow savings to cover building maintenance items. Now, we voted as a church for 2018 to start putting aside $650 a month to do that, but what we did with this transfer was put in essentially roughly 2 years worth of escrow savings. Now, the main reason we did that was we know that here starting in the spring soon, there's going to be a complete replacement of the AC system up here for the office area. That's going to be quite expensive. One other thing we have talked about is the youth summer intern. Now, we voted as a church to fund one summer intern for $3,000, and the second summer intern would be funded with fundraising. The fundraising was the cookbook sales. Well, to date, the cookbook sales have been around $500. Well, at first blush, we were concerned about that, but then John did some digging with Teresa's help and found out that our fundraising, this fundraising for the cookbook is in line with prior fundraisings. The last time we did a fundraising to fund a youth intern, it was 2015, and we raised roughly the same amount of money then, but what really pushed it over where we could hire the intern was individual giving from folks at Trinity for this intern. So let me just say, with that in mind, that 2 things. If you haven't bought a cookbook, buy one. But also just take what you're going to see today is a testimony about our youth program here. So take that into consideration as it's laid on your heart. If you feel like you would like to donate to money for the intern, just look at what's going to happen here today. Now finally, one final thing we want to consider is this income missions giving. We want to be able to work with the missions committee to give an additional payment to those 3 organizations I mentioned, income-based missions giving that we do, kind of a extra gift. We think it's prudent to wait till June to see where we stand on things. And I'm confident we'll still be able to make a gift. We'd like to at least maintain at least 2 months minimum in our checking account, 2 months of expenses in our checking account. That's kind of our guiding principle. But having said that, I'm confident that we'll be able to make that extra payment. So anyway, thank you for this time, but also, moreover, thank you for being such a generous church. This is it's just unbelievable what we saw in December. Maybe it's not unbelievable. Probably God did it, so it's believable. So anyway, thank you.
Please stand now for the passing of the peace.
Surrounded immediately. Yep. You got it.
This is the third Sunday of Lent, and our story today is about Peter. Welcome to worship.
My name, just call me Simon. It doesn't really matter that much anyway. Were you at Golgotha today? I was. I didn't plan to be there, but I was there. Plans. What a joke. I didn't plan any of this. None of this was my expectation. I was his right-hand man. I thought I had it figured out. I mean, I knew I never had him figured out. You've heard of him, no doubt. The healer, the rabbi, the rebel. But he's more than that to me. You know, I was one of the first ones to follow him, right? I got in on the ground floor. I laughed with him. I fished with him. I ate with him. I sat around the fire with him. I heard him talk about his Father, and I was the first one to get it. I was the first one to speak the truth. Everyone else was afraid to put it into words. He looked at us and he said, "Just who do you think I am?" I'll never forget it. He had the most curious look in his eye. You know what it reminded me of? He kind of looked the way my wife looks when she's prepared a fine meal for me when I come home from work, and she spent the day cooking the roast and mixing it up with her special sauces. It's a look of anticipation, waiting for my reaction when I smell the aroma. That's the look he had, a look of excited anticipation, waiting for my reaction. And he wanted to see if we got it, if I got it, to see the reaction when we realized the truth. And I did. I got it. And I spoke it out loud. He was the Messiah, the anointed one, the one sent to deliver us from all this mess that we live in. And I knew first. He told me I was a rock. I knew what he meant. I was ready to be the general of his army. More than ready, I was eager, waiting for the moment to prove my worth to him. Last night, I thought that moment had come. When the priest showed up with the soldiers to arrest him, I drew my sword and I charged into those soldiers. That's what the Messiah's right-hand man is supposed to do, right? Right? Except he said no. He told me to put my sword away, and he healed the wound I'd inflicted. I didn't get it. They took him away, tried him, beat him, crucified him. He warned me I would deny him. I argued with him, told him he was crazy, told him I'd die for him. But here I am. I ran. I fled the soldiers. I couldn't even stand up to a servant girl who said she recognized me. Some general scared of a little girl. He was my friend. How could I have done that? I went back. Like I said, I was there. Cloak over my head, making sure to stay in the middle of the crowd so nobody would see me. I couldn't even bring myself to look at him. But I could hear. And over the murmuring of the crowd, I heard his voice. The voice I've learned so well these past 3 years. Weakened, yes. Anguished, yes. Strained, certainly. But still familiar. And of all the incredible things I've heard and seen following him, his words in that moment topped the list. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And standing there, lost in the shadow of my betrayal, I knew I was one of them. He forgave me. I know it. But I can't bring myself to accept it. Can I?
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the blessings you've given us. Thank you for the opportunity to come and worship you today. Please just let us take this message we hear today and carry it with us in our lives, and watch over and protect us all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please stand and sing with us. The words are printed in your bulletin.
God calls us to be still and know that He is God. So we stop each week during our service to remember to slow down, be still, and listen for God to speak to us, to remind us of what is true and important, because it is so easy for us to fall into sin or be overwhelmed when things go wrong. Please join me now in a few moments of silent prayer. Dear God, thank you for the time we are given. Please help us to find time each day to be still and know that you are God. We ask for wisdom in using this time wisely. Amen.
Let's vote off into I'll be reading from John 25 through 27, and that is on page 767 in your Pew Bible if you'd like to follow along. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there warming himself. So they asked him, "You aren't one of his disciples too, are you?" He denied it, saying, "I am not." One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him, "Didn't I see you with him in the garden?" Again, Peter denied it, and at that moment a rooster began to crow. This is the word of the Lord.
Oh man, they letting me preach today. Whew, man, they smart. Here we go. Oh, probably smart if I have my papers in the right order. Can't read a good sermon if you can't read the papers that go with it. Really should have prepared my papers. Now we're just going to wing it. All right. So I'm going to start off because we can't do a good Youth Sunday. We can't go through all this without thanking the people who helped set it up. So I'm going to go ahead and can we give a round of applause to the church staff, the parents who got us here way too early in the morning, and more importantly, the youth. It takes a lot. It's good for the youth to come up here. It's hard to come up here and be part of the service sometimes. So let's give a round of applause to the youth who did this. All right, now I'm actually going to do a sermon, or what I call the pre-sermon. My pre-sermon is I'm going to do some stretches, clean my glasses, and act like I know what I'm doing today. Okay, I'm clean my glasses, act like I know what I'm doing, because you can't read the sermon if you ain't got dirty glasses. All right, so today I'm preaching on Psalms 121, the whole chapter. It's like 8 verses. It is a set of questions David's asking the Lord. David, if you want a little history rebrief real quick, he's a future king. He's the slayer of Goliath, the slingshot guy. And what he's doing here is he's asking God for reassurance. He's in the middle of a battle. I'm going to divide this into 2 sections. We got part 1, which is when he questions, which is just verse 1. And that's when he questions, and he's looking for a response from the Lord. In part 2, which is verses 2 through 8, it's God answering, the reassurance he gets from God. But, like any good sermon, before we get into the scripture, I got a story to tell. It's everyone's favorite part of kindergarten. All right. Everyone's part. This is the story of me, 6th grade. So I am at Heritage Elementary School. New year, new school. I went from K through 5 at Columbia, where Mom teaches. And then I went to Heritage, really branching out here. So that's not important. I don't know why I keep saying stuff. So today, that is the big test day, is where we're going to start. I had a whole 5 days, which is a week, to prepare to recite the preamble to the Constitution in history class. I had a whole week to do this. That's like 20 years in 6th graders' mind. It's like I can go outside and play for like 15 hours in that time frame. Shoot basketball. So I didn't feel the need to study. There was no need to study. Big Shot Jackson does not need to study. Big Shot Jackson has got all the answers. And Big Shot, I can walk in there, get an A without even taking a breath. It's just going to come to me because, I'm just that big of a shot. I just like to correct that. I'm getting an A+ on the test, not an A. So I did woke up that Friday morning, doing my morning routine, brush teeth, eat some breakfast, which is my most important part of the day, get dressed, and wake up that I was dreaming and that I had overslept again. So I rushed, panicked to the bus, because once again, I am no longer with my mom to school. Get to school, first block, guess it, it's history. This is the moment I had feared for a long time coming, because this is the first time that I'm pretty sure I got an F on a test. I get up and I walk into class and I realize I know nothing. I don't even know the first sentence to this preamble. I probably should still know it today, but I don't. I just want to skip ahead and say, guess who got a 10 on their test? Oh, yeah, that's me. It was a good day. Guess who didn't go play around and go play with his friends after school that day or probably the next 3 weeks? Yeah. I like to put that into an equal, for a sixth grader playing with your friends is like for an adult having a car. You ever had your car taken away? It's not fun. For youth, it's phones. Like, can you live in a world, youth, without phones? I don't think I can. Now that y'all know an embarrassing story about me, I'm going to somehow make this relate to Psalms. Yeah, we'll find out how. So I'm going to start off by reading the scripture. Psalms 121, this is just verse 1. This is the question part. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? He is asking just one simple question that has so many meanings to it. He's just asking God for help is the easiest way to sum it up. He's asking out of fear. As you remember, he was in a battle. A lot more scary than he questions his faith. I don't know people who don't question their faith. He's asking God for reassurance. It's hard to be human and not want reassurance or not to be scared. It takes a whole lot. He's praying for answers to his question. It's important to remember that he is a king. This isn't like a normal person. This is a person who's supposed to have the answers and doesn't have them. It's hard to do that, to have no answers when you're supposed to be answering for a whole kingdom. Times can seem uncertain. Even the most knowledgeable have questions. I'm not going to stand up here, and trust me, I'm not the most knowledgeable person on earth. I'm a senior in high school. I do some dumb stuff. But I do ask questions, and I feel like I have answers, but I know I don't. We need questions, though, to have answers. I always want God to give me straight, direct answers. I just want him, pray, okay, I got the answer, okay, we're good. Now, it never comes like that, it seems. It always comes indirectly. It always comes through that friend or through an event that happens around, or some days it does just hit you upside the head. We all look for those answers in life. Lucky for us, we have a God who answers them. It's the best thing on earth. I was taught from a young age not to question my authority. I was taught to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir. Why? Because I was taught that's what I was supposed to do. I didn't know that it was right. I just had faith that it was the right thing to do. It's kind of the same with God. You just kind of have the faith and know that he's going to give you the answers you're looking for. It's always a good thing. In my story, I made a poor choice that led me to question myself. I went against what I should have done, and I didn't study. Probably would have been good. I had a week, which is a whole lot of time. But what I did realize is when I looked back at that and what choices I did when I didn't have an answer was, first couple things I did were common sense. I went to my textbook. Then I really had some luck, hopefully, to get a 10. But most importantly, I prayed about it. I got into class. It's hard to think as a sixth grader, why are you praying for answers? It may seem like something silly, but I feel like it's powerful enough that I was leaning on my faith when I had the questions. It can be silly questions. It can be serious questions. It's important to the fact that you ask the questions because you will get some form of answer. My form of answer was a 10 and no friends for a couple weeks, but it was an answer I needed to get. I learned my lesson. But I say all this, and I'm going to wrap this little section up with David asked the Lord questions because he needs to strengthen his faith. His faith needs strengthening. It is always good to ask for help. That is something we must never forget. You don't ever have to do it alone. You got friends, you got family, you got a church family, and you got the people around you. But most importantly, you got your God. And that's who's going to answer most of your questions. All right, so I got another story for y'all because this is even my favorite story I probably can tell. This is story time numero 2 is what I got on my piece of paper. This is fall retreat 4 years ago, or I've been corrected after early service 3 years ago, sophomore year. Sarcasm alert, it's my favorite year. Football's heavy at the time. It's ooh. So we're church youth. Every year we go to Camp Tenome up in Pisgah, Alabama. Who knows where Pisgah, Alabama is? Well, it has a lot more hands than early service. You see, I didn't expect that many people. You see, I didn't know where Pisgah was until my 5th trip there. And I was like, oh, there's a town? There's not even a Piggly Wiggly in this place. I was so shook. I was like, man, what am I supposed to do? Okay, there's my piece of paper I've been looking for 10 minutes. Sorry, I had to get that out. Night 2 at camp. So this is Saturday night. We've been there. We get it arrive Friday night. We get there Saturday. Late Saturday night, it's a tradition, unless there's a fire warning going off in late November in Alabama, when there always seems to be no rain around. We have this huge thing, a bonfire. Now, most people think bonfire, they're thinking Madison bonfires. Madison bonfires can fit on this pulpit. It's just this big. No, we're talking about 15 Jacksons can fit in this thing. That's a big bonfire. Up at this bonfire, we have s'mores, and everyone at camp is there. Now, if you want a total on how many s'mores I got to eat, you need to see Chris Taylor after service, because I'm not saying that number out loud. So here's the plan. I can, because everyone is up here, all the chaperones, rest of camp was about a half a mile away. It's just gone. It's pitch dark at night. It's 10 o'clock at night. The plan is simple. I am going to gather me and my friends. Now, this is all my plan. This is not always a good idea. Well, we gathered together, and I said, let's head back down to the small Madison-sized campfire. And so I just want to give you all perspective on the people in this group, because this just is going to tell you this was a bad idea. I got me, Josh Taylor. I got Kaylee Horn, Andrew Woodard, and there may or may not have been a chaperone. And you can kind of fill in the rest of the spaces on who went down with us. It was a fun trip. This seems like a bad idea. I would say it was wrong. I learned a lot on this trip. All right. I got up and we went down there. We've been down for about 5 minutes. And I got up and I said, I need to go get some hot chocolate from the main cabin. Because I'm thinking, what am I doing sitting by a fire quiet, like all 5 of us, like we ain't got nothing to talk about? And I got up and I went up and I walk around and I turn around, like I'm walking away like this. Come back around and I'm just like, shh. I turn around, I'm like hiding right behind Kaylee and I go, And I come up behind and, this great idea of mine pops up and it goes, what happens if I scream fire at the top of my lungs? And just see who jumps. And then I realized at that moment, oh, this is not a good idea. But, I did it anyway. I still had that girly, high guy voice, like when you have in early high school. The one that I can't do anymore. But I went through and that was kind of like my thing. That was scary. But yes, I yelled. I was probably a couple inches away from Kaylee's ear, so I may need to run away after service like I did that night. All right. But in this story, I'm going to wrap this up. It was good. There was a chaperone there. I was lucky I didn't get kicked out of camp for the rest of my years as a youth. Ooh, that would have been scary. But in the story, I got an answer. It may have not been the question. You may not have realized I asked it. But I left the camp, and I went down there, and I left. If you know something, there was always a chaperone in my story. Where there was chaperones up at the big bonfire, and they followed us down. I know someone did, because I guarantee you someone was watching us, because it's hard not to see about a group of 7 or 8 people just wander away from this big, giant bonfire. It's kind of hard to know. So we don't know who the chaperone was. We were just we're going to roll with it. But inside, you're always looking for that chaperone. There's always something good inside. But just like God in our lives, there was a chaperone there. And it's kind of the metaphor I was looking for. I was talking about how you get your answers. And that's how I got my answer. I knew I was still being watched over because of the chaperone there. I'm going to go ahead and finish reading up Psalms 121, verses 2 through 8. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he watches over Israel, will neither sleep nor slumber. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. And that's God's answer to David's question, pretty much. It may not be all of his questions answered, but there are questions that he answers in 6 verses. And some of the questions he asked were I did in the beginning, but there's some I bet he didn't write down. You always say the verbal questions, and you go off and you ask some questions in your brain that you just don't say out loud. And I wrote a couple of them down that I think he was probably saying in this battle that he doesn't know, but he didn't say it. Because we all have that inner side. It is, why do I question you? Why do I feel this way? And why do I hurt? Some of the questions were answered in these verses. We are told in verse 8, the Lord watches over our coming both now and forevermore. That is a powerful statement. Now and forevermore. That is a long time, y'all. We gain just from this single verse multiple ideas. The first one is we are cared for. It's hard not to feel great when you know you're cared for by an everlasting God. He's put effort into watching us. We are protected. We are his life. He is doing this now and forevermore. I keep coming back to that statement because I feel like it has a lot of power behind it. It really makes you feel good about yourself sometimes. The other verses in this passage show God cares for us, and the questions we hold are partially answered here in indirect format. And he watches us during the day and at night. That means he does not take a break, which is great to hear. He does not slumber. He is not sleeping on us. He is always there for us day and night. And he's the shade at our right hand. Now, there's one thing I know from class. It is we always have a shadow. Even at nighttime in the pitch black, it may seem, we do have a shadow. It's called the moon. And it's always there for us. And it's key. I really like the statement. He is a shade at our right hand. He never leaves our side. Y'all know about that, I didn't do any research on this like I should have. But you know that painting, Pastor Mike brought it up a couple weeks ago, and there's people walking in the sand, there's two sets of footprints. It's kind of like that all over again. You got one set always there. You got yourself, and then sometimes you bring on that second path when life gets hard. And sometimes there's that one where he just carries you through, and that's God. That's really powerful. I kind of wrap this up, and I wanted to say some key statements here. Back again to the shade our right hand is kind of like a chaperone. But like in most cases, we may not get the answers we want directly or indirectly, but we do get these answers. We get them through our friends and family and everyone around us. But I feel like there is one thing to take away here, and that is God is always here for you. He never leaves you. He's always the shade of your right hand. And I just want to end today with a basic question. Where does your help come from? Amen.
At this time, our pre-K and our kindergartners are invited to exit for children's worship as we sing together our hymn of commitment, hymn number 294, Have Thine Own Way, Lord. Please stand as we sing together. Please be seated.
I just wanted to start off my sermon saying thank you to everybody for allowing me this opportunity and for letting our youth group lead this service. It means a lot to all of us who have participated, and it's just a great thing that our church does. We all struggle with our faith. I've struggled with my faith throughout most of my teenage life. About a year and a half ago, some of you may know that I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. These are mental illnesses that a lot of people have and have to deal with for their entire lives. These illnesses can cause you to have dark places where you feel alone, broken, and lose faith. For me, it caused me to lose my faith and lose my joy. I searched for other sources of joy, but was unsuccessful. In the scripture, Peter cuts off the ear of the high priest servants, and this just shows his undeniable and passionate faith for Jesus. We all have times like those where we have faith that's so passionate about something that we're willing to do something that we necessarily shouldn't do. For me, those times occur in the Dominican Republic, where I see people with less possessions than all of us, but have stronger faith than the majority of us. Well, on the trips, the mission team helps to strengthen each other's faith in an incredible way. Before my first mission trip, I was strongly questioning my faith and almost had no more. Throughout the trip, I did a complete 180 and began to regain my faith and made new friends. These friends I still talk to today and have strengthened my faith unbelievably. I became re-involved in church and became a youth rep. These trips took focus off of me and put it back on God and His work. This was a key part in me regaining my faith. After Jesus was arrested, only Peter and one other disciple followed him, which showed incredible bravery and faith. But Peter denied Jesus 3 times within the same day. I was very confused as to how this would happen, because if he had so much faith for Jesus, why would he deny him? Then I noticed that when he denied Jesus, Jesus wasn't with him anymore. Jesus was with him spiritually, but not physically. And I think for a lot of people, when we leave our church for any period of time, we slowly begin to lose our faith. I had a dark time about 2 years ago where I quit coming to church almost completely. I lost my self-respect and I lost motivation to do almost anything. I found that the only solution was to return to church. Much like Peter drew strength from his disciples, I drew strength from the other youth. We're all the same as Peter in that if we're not around God or Jesus, we lose faith. Without our church, we have no faith. Spending time away from routine and with other Christians can incredibly help you with your faith. For other people, devotional and Bible study helps more. But for others, meditation with God is their solution. Faith wavers when you separate yourself from Jesus, and I would encourage all of you to find your own ways to strengthen your faith and remain close to God. And I just want to thank you guys one more time for allowing me to to preach today and for our youth group to host this service.
About 15 years ago, our youth group started doing ministry projects on Sunday nights once a month. One of the places we go and work is at Asbury Thrift Store. We actually just went there last Sunday night. One of the Asbury employees meets us there and tells us what they need us to do. Usually we move furniture, sweep, throw out trash, and sort of hang up clothes. And sometimes most people ride the tricycles. One of the things we talk about before we go is how most of us just shop there when we're looking for something retro or for a party or something like that. But a lot of people have to shop there for most things they need. So please join me in a silent prayer for the people who work at Asbury Thrift to provide this ministry and for those who find themselves in need of help. Amen.
Let's be sure we give them a big hand for all the ways they've led us in worship today. Thank you, youth. Outstanding group of young people we have at Trinity. We're very blessed, aren't we? And we want to thank you all for the ways you witness to us and encourage us in our faith, too. Our young people mean a world to us here at Trinity. I appreciate all the courage it takes to be a part of the service today. Appreciate Taylor putting together the worship service. He does it all the time, but there's a lot of moving parts today, as you can imagine. And Jessica for the tremendous influence she has in being our youth director and working with our young people. I noticed it was success at the early service because one of the mothers of a preacher hugged another mother of a youth. When the mothers of the youth are hugging after the service, the Youth Sunday went well. And so I think it went well, don't y'all? We can go hug each other after this is over with. One of the joys that I have is getting to work with the preachers, and I particularly wanted to commend
Jackson and Andrew for the courage that it takes to get up. And they said, there's a lot more people in second service than there was early. So the courage it takes to do that. And I hope that you got how good it was. They shared from their hearts about their own personalities and their own stories. And yet they also were able to take the Bible passages that they looked at, Psalm 121 for Jackson and in John 18 for Andrew, and they saw stuff in it. God revealed to them, and they sort of blended that with their message today. I thought they did a great job. I'm real proud of them for doing that. And one of the things we talked about when we were developing all this was about the story of Peter denying Jesus 3 times in that courtyard when Jesus was arrested and interrogated. And Jackson came up with Psalm 121 and asked the question, where does our help come from? There are times in our lives when we need help. His answer, I think, was God. And then Andrew came along and looked at that passage and through his own life talked about the need we have to be close to God. And there's times when we somehow separate ourselves from that. So find ways to be strong and be close to God. I'm always amazed at this story when John tells it. Peter doesn't walk in there and deny Jesus 3 times. He's very courageous. He goes into that courtyard while Jesus is being interrogated inside, intending to be strong in his faith. But it's not easy. It's not easy following Jesus. And when he first says to that servant girl, I'm not one of the followers, the first time he denies him, it begins to get easier and easier. It's hard to follow Jesus. John does something special for us. He gives us the first story of the denial from Peter, and then he focuses on Jesus, and then he comes back with 2 other denials from Peter, but the center is Jesus. And if you look at the story, Jesus is interrogated by the high priest, and the first question he gets is, tell me about your disciples. But Jesus, being Jesus, won't do it. He says, I spoke. I'm the one who taught. I'm the one responsible. At the very end of his life, he's still shielding disciples. And I just wanted to say through this service what Andrew and Jackson preached is that we all need help, and it is hard sometimes to follow Jesus, and there are times when we lose our hold on him. But he never gives up on us. And his love is strong enough to always hold on to you and me. I find a lot of comfort in that story. And I appreciate you too taking the time to prayerfully engage it and preach it for us today. And thank y'all for being with us in worship.
Hello, I'm Mike Oliver. I'm the senior pastor here at Trinity Baptist Church. I'd like to thank you for joining us for worship through our church website. And also I'd like to invite you to come and visit us. This is a great church. We have friendly people here. We value worship. We value community and global missions. And there are programs for children all the way to senior adults. I think you'll like our church, and I hope you'll come and visit us and see for yourself in person. If you have questions about our church, like to know more, we'd love for you to contact us. There's information on our website. You can call us or email us or come by, and one of our staff members will be glad to talk with you. Welcome to Trinity, and God bless you and keep you.